Presidential candidates don't come to places like Mississippi. Yeah. They also don't come to places like California and Massachusetts, right? Because we're not the battleground states. We can have national voting, and that means get rid of the Electoral College and everybody.
Looking to 2020, so Nevada could become the 15th state to enact legislation that would allow its electoral votes to be allocated based on the winner of the popular vote in a presidential election.
I want to touch upon getting rid of the Electoral College. Why, in your view, is it problematic in this country?
It's an artifact of an earlier age when the 13 colonies had some concerns. But we now are a unified country. We ought to have one person, one vote. That's the purest form of democracy.
There is no difference between communism and socialism, except in the means of achieving the same ultimate end. Communism purposes to enslave men by force, socialism by vote. It is merely the difference between murder and suicide. Ayn Rand. So we see, they need the votes for socialism. Our founding fathers understood this and had very good reason not to create a pure democracy. In a pure democracy, the majority rules. So if the majority at 51% wants to abolish the Constitution, they could. Now, propaganda has been a problem since the invention of the pen and paper. So let's take a look at how easily the news can deceive people. And while we're looking at this, let's think about the analogy of democracy. The analogy of two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner.
And if we work our butts off to make sure that we take back all three chambers of Congress, all three chambers of government, the presidency, the Senate, and the House in 2020, we can't start working in 2020.
Inaugurated January 3rd, January 4th, we're signing healthcare, we're signing this.
But they don't actually inaugurate Congress people, they swear them in.
And then she went on to say that she was going to get inaugurated on the 3rd and then start signing bills on the 4th. You don't get inaugurated and you don't sign bills. Only the president will sign the bills that you present to him.
I'm Kevin Phillips with Campus Reform. Today we're at Florida International University talking to students about their opinions of socialism and if they'd support a socialist GPA policy. Would they be willing to share their high GPA with people that have a low GPA? Because after all, it's all about equality. Which would you rather have in America, socialism or capitalism?
I would say socialism.
How do you view the word socialism, favorably or unfavorably?
I guess I would go with favorably.
Like, I have family in Europe. They go to college for free. Their healthcare is paid for. They don't have to worry about it at all.
I favor that over capitalism.
Okay, got it.
I also think I favor that, like, socialism over capitalism.
Socialism is more geared toward, like, helping the people in your, the governed.
I'd rather people have that same opportunity. There's a lot of excess in America.
The main idea of socialism being that people at the top are doing their fair share to help people at the bottom, trying to prevent disparity of income and trying to prevent excess, as you called it. So on campus, if there's a GPA disparity where there's people at the bottom with a poor GPA, would you support a policy where people at the top spread the wealth and give that GPA to people at the bottom?
Help them get a better GPA?
Yeah.
I'm all for helping. I wouldn't give, let me just give you some of my points.
But it's about being fair, right? We got to help people at the bottom.
I've lost a lot of sleep, so I don't know if I will be fair.
It's hard. I guess it would be kind of hypocritical for me to say no.
That's completely different.
How is it different?
Because I'm studying all day for my grade.
What do you mean by sharing it? Literally, giving them a chunk of my GPA?
Yep.
Dang.
I would want to say no, straight up.
Now, in order to understand the importance of the Electoral College, we have to understand how it works. Now, each state is given a number of congressmen or representatives based on the state's population. Each state also has 2 senators. Now, each state is given 1 electoral vote for each representative and each senator. So in North Dakota has 2 senators and 1 representative. Therefore, they have 3 electoral votes. Now in California, they have 2 senators and 53 representatives. So California has 55 electoral votes. Now all the electoral votes goes to the candidate that wins the popular vote in that state. Or in other words, whoever gets the most votes. So the reason for this is so that each state has a voice. In the electoral, California outnumbers North Dakota 17-1. But in the populace, where there are 39 million people in California and 750,000 people in North Dakota, California will outnumber North Dakota 52-1. North Dakota will never have a say in anything that goes on in this country when it stands up against California. So now, think back to that earlier analogy. If North Dakota was the sheep and California was hungry, guess what California would be able to do? You see, life in North Dakota, where it gets -40 degrees during winter, where cities are hundreds of miles apart, where your local law enforcement agency has less than 50 people, life is much different than it is in California. And that's why every state needs a fair shot of having its voice heard. That's why we need the Electoral College. You see, ideologies like socialism spread much faster in densely populated areas like California, where the government has a lot more control and the people are okay with it. But in a place like North Dakota, where you have to take care of yourself, where you have to work to survive, I can promise you, not one person in North Dakota will ever vote for socialism. And that's why we need to keep the Electoral College.